If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, September the 18th. Today we're going to do something a bit different. I made the script for a YouTube video but ran out of time to make it. So we're just going to go through the last week's updates for the Ukraine war. So, this past week in Ukraine has been one of grinding battles, long strikes and mounting pressure on both sides. Russia is still throwing wave after wave of assaults along the front line, while Ukraine has been hitting back deep behind enemy positions, exposing just how fragile Russia's war machine really is. In frontline developments, on the ground, the fiercest fighting continued along the eastern and southern fronts. Russian forces tried to push multiple directions, but their advances have come to a staggering cost. In the Donetsk region, Russia kept hammering at Ukrainian defences near the key town of Chasiv Yar and Pokrovsk. The Kremlin clearly wants a breakthrough here, hoping to collapse Ukrainian lines and open the way up westward. But despite heavy shelling and armoured assaults, Russia made little meaningful progress. Ukrainian defenders absorbed wave after wave, inflicting serious losses. Further south, in Zaporizhzhia, Russian troops pressed assaults near Rotobi and Orkhiv, the same areas that saw heavy fighting during Ukraine's counteroffensive last year. This time, the roles were reversed. Russia is trying to claw back ground, but the fortified Ukrainian defenses and drone-guided artillery made each attack costly and often futile. Meanwhile, in the Kharkiv sector, Russia tried to exploit vulnerabilities with small-scale pushes, hoping to stretch Ukraine's already thin manpower. These attacks were more about pressure than territory, but they tie into Russia's broader strategy. Keep Ukraine constantly defending on multiple fronts, and hope something cracks. The common thread across the week, Russia is willing to take heavy casualties for inches of land. Ukraine in turn is trading space carefully when needed, but largely holding firm and ensuring Russia pays dearly for every advance. In the Ukrainian strikes, while the frontline battles remained intense, the real story of this week was Ukraine's deep strikes into Russian-held territory. In Crimea, Ukrainian forces once again targeted Russian air defense systems and military infrastructure. Several strikes hit S-400s and S-300 launchers, degrading Moscow's ability to shield the peninsula. Satellite imagery and local reports suggest that at least 2 major air defense sites were damaged or destroyed, a blow that could make Crimea even more vulnerable to future Ukrainian attacks. Ukraine also intensified strikes against logistic hubs in occupied territories. Rail lines, ammunition depots, and command posts came under fire, disrupting Russia's ability to supply the front lines. Each of these strikes doesn't just damage equipment, it forces Russia to move supplies further back, stretching an already strained logistical chain. And then there was the cross-border drone raids. Ukrainian drones once again reached deep into Russia itself, targeting oil depots and military bases, hundreds of kilometers from the front line. These raids have 2 effects. They undermine Russia's sense of security at home, and they force the Kremlin to relocate their precious air defense assets away from the battlefield. Taken together, these strikes show how Ukraine's growing ability to shape the battlefield indirectly by making it harder for Russia to fight tomorrow's battles, not just today's. Russia's strategy right now is a paradox. It's both simple and desperate. Moscow is throwing bodies and equipment at the front line in hopes of grinding Ukraine down, but the cracks are showing. On the manpower side, Russian units continue to suffer extreme losses. Reports suggest that many assaults are being carried out by poorly trained recruits and reservists, often with minimal support. This quantity over quality approach can overwhelm positions temporarily, but it bleeds away Russia's long-term strength. On the equipment side, Russia is leaning heavily on older Soviet-era tanks and artillery. Modern gear is increasingly scarce, and each Ukrainian precision strike on a depot or factory worsens the shortage. Moscow has tried to compensate by ramping up domestic production and importing from partners like Iran and North Korea, but the scale of losses are hard to replace. And then there's the propaganda front. The Kremlin continues to declare progress, painting even minor advances as great victories. But at the reality on the ground, the grinding pace, the high casualties, the repeated setbacks in Crimea tells a different story. On international news, beyond the battlefield, the political currents around the war continue to shift this week. In the West, the support for Ukraine remains strong, though debates about aid and long-term strategy are intensifying. Discussions in Europe and the US focus not just on military aid, but also on economic resilience and reconstruction plans. The question is no longer just how Ukraine can hold the line today, but how it can rebuild and sustain itself tomorrow. Russia, meanwhile, is doubling down on its partnership outside the West. Military cooperation with Iran and North Korea is deepening, particularly in drones and artillery shells. Moscow is betting that these alliances can offset Western sanctions and keep its war machine supplied. But this resilience is also underscored just how isolated Russia is, and how far it has fallen from being able to sustain a modern war effort on its own. At the same time, cracks in Russia's domestic stability are showing. Economic pressure is mounting, inflation is biting, and discontent is harder to suppress entirely. The Kremlin can control the narrative tightly, but it can't hide the costs of war forever. So in conclusion, what does this week tell us about the bigger picture? Russia is still on the offensive, but at an unsustainable cost. Ukraine, meanwhile, was proving that it doesn't need to match Russia's soldier for soldier, but can weaken Moscow by striking where it hurts most: logistics, air defences, and morale. The war is far from over, but this week made one thing clear: the side that adapts fastest and stretches the other's weaknesses to breaking point will shape the next phase of the conflict. And that's where we'll leave it for now. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Ukraine's deep strikes are enough to change the momentum, or will Russia's sheer numbers keep grinding forward? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's update. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you!